All right, hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm driving back from St. Louis now. I'm very busy and have very little time, but you guys always come first. And here's the thing. We'll be missing class Tuesday. You know, we won't be together. And so for the Atlas testing, but we have no time to waste. And I thought it'd be good if we could do a little lesson here as I'm driving. It's just going to be hot off the cuff. But I know it's in the CED. And so just your assignment for Tuesday, do this by Wednesday, is watch this and take notes just like anything else. It'll be fast. It'll be succinct. You can review your reading. And on the CED, this is topics 7.7 and 7.8. Conducting World War II and mass atrocities after 1900. Not a lot on here. A lot of it you know from other stuff. And so I'm just going to go over the illustrative examples, define some stuff, and if you have some questions, we can talk about it Wednesday, right? But I'm going to do this real fast, real short. Bear with me because I'm driving and I'm just talking off the top of my head. You know, we did the causes of World War II, leading up into World War II, unresolved tensions from World War I, the Great Depression, the rise of fascism, totalitarianism in Germany and Italy, the militarism of Adolf Hitler, right? Propaganda, cult of personality, all this stuff. Hitler wants land. And so this is all going on. And we lead up into World War II. The direct cause of World War II is Hitler wanting more land after taking the Sudetenland, the Munich Agreement from Czechoslovakia, and the countries do nothing about it. That policy is called appeasement. And Hitler says, I'm not going to do it anymore. Well, he does. And he invades Poland. And then the countries say, Germany, Great Britain, France, that's a step too far. That's a Poland too far. And so by 1939, we have Europe involved in war. World War II is 39 to 45, though you could consider the East Asian countries of Japan and China, which had been going at it for on and off forever, since at least 31. They have been fighting World War II much longer. It's sometimes called the Second Sino-Japanese War, and then when all the countries get involved, you know, World War II. But World War II is a total war. Remember, a total war like World War I, all aspects of society, the economy, the population, the government are mobilized to win, because it's winner takes all. This is a real deal. World War II is especially devastating. It's the most devastating human conflict in world history. We're talking about hundreds of millions dead. Short term and long term. I mean, it's really freaking terrible, right? What people will do to each other over a flag. And so this is why we study it. And there is an odd, weird, kind of grotesque and morbid fascination with it. I don't really get it. But some people do. What is that? Body armor. Lemon lime. Very good. I put on ice. How do these countries do total war? Number one, ding, 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 propaganda. Through art, media like the radio, movies, newspapers, propaganda posters, newsreels, any of these new and old technologies used to boost nationalism, boost support for the state. I want you to fight for the United States, right? Defend Mother Russia, right? Anything it takes to make people think that the war's going on for a good reason, that the country is doing well in it, even if they're not, and that they have a chance to win it, and it takes your help, your money, your fighting, whatever it takes. That's propaganda, right? Next, countries would use another example of countries performing total war is the mobilization of people at home and abroad. And so you had, like, Great Britain, again, using colonial troops for fighting, right? And them getting a sense of nationalism and independence for that. Or women at home mobilized to work, right? Like Rosie the Riveter in the United States, right? In Germany, an example of mobilization would be slave labor, right? Of political prisoners, those in the work camps, right? And in the Soviet Union, command economy, right? Mobilizing You're going to make oil. You're going to make steel. In fact, during the war, Stalin would we need to get a factory in this city, part of his 5-year plan ideology. They would pick up factories literally off of the ground, take them apart, take the machines apart, put them on trains and ship them somewhere else away from the front. Just so that's how much the economy was commanded in that totalitarian regime. And so mobilization of people, goods, the economies by these governments as well. The governments would also suppress liberties. There would be no dissent, right, in the United States, in Great Britain, or in the totalitarian regimes, especially those who are against the war were jailed or worse, right? I guess other examples of command economy that you should know would be like rationing. Even in the Western democracies, there was rationing. You cannot, if you're a person that's not, especially important for the war effort, you're limited on what you can buy and what you can sell and what you can do, right? And so I have some rationing coupons in my classroom. Remind me and I'll show them to you guys, right? New technology comes out from the war, right? Of course, it's ended by the newest and most deadly and most scientifically adept one, the nuclear bomb, the atomic bomb, right? Dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan by the United States to make them surrender. New techniques and strategies like blitzkrieg, the use of planes, tanks, and then people in a coordinated, direct, deep strike into a place by the German military. Today is still the standard military tactic, right? Next, firebombing and terror bombing of cities and like civilian and yes, industrial and military targets too, but like civilian targets to lower their morale, right? And so you'd have whole cities firebombed. The most famous one's probably Dresden by the Allies in Germany. But there's other ones by the Allies like Tokyo, and then by the Axis powers too. Of course, they practice firebombing as well. Let me talk about each country. Okay, so Great Britain, its leader is Winston Churchill. The United States, its leader is Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR. Germany, its leader is Hitler, and the USSR's leader is Stalin. I will give a brief combat overview of World War II, and then I'll talk about each of those countries and their leaders during the war. And then I'll talk about the Holocaust, and then I'll talk about other genocides and ethnic cleansings to know. Okay, so World War II, basically. Okay, September 1st, 1939. Germany and the USSR had made an agreement to not go to war with each other. That's the Nazi-Soviet non-aggression pact. They would split Poland, though, and so they both go on and clap Poland. Great Britain and France realize the policy of appeasement has failed, and they declare war on Germany. World War II has become a truly world war. Japan and China are still fighting. The United States will not come in for 2 more years. The fighting in Europe is pretty swift. Germany will take over Denmark, Norway, Belgium, and the Netherlands, and Luxembourg like that, real fast, just like they had clapped Poland. All of them in less than a month. Then it will turn its sights on France, and it takes France in less than a month. In fact, it almost cuts off the French and British Expeditionary Force that had come to help France at Dunkirk, but they are evacuated by a flotilla of military and civilian troops back to Great Britain. France falls in less than a month. This is not World War I. Blitzkrieg is working, and Hitler's taken over most all of Europe very quickly. There's a puppet government put up in France called Vichy France that cooperates with the Nazis. A lot of places where Hitler goes, he will create puppet governments that are independent, but they're not, right? I guess I'll talk a little bit about Italy and Germany. They will take over parts of North Africa too, right? Italy will take over Ethiopia. The Soviet Union is still not fighting anyone other than Poland. Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, those places that wanted back after World War I that had given up. Let's turn our sights to East Asia. Japan and China are fighting. Especially brutal battle is the rape of Nanking or Nanjing, a terrible atrocity done by the Japanese troops to civilians and military in Nanjing, China. China's on the run. China's not doing very good. They're holding their own without really any international aid. But Japan is eating up on them. And that's kind of how it is until the United States shows up, right? Kind of like World War I guess. Hitler's plan to take Great Britain out of the war is called the Blitz, or the Battle of Britain. He wants to terror bomb Great Britain in submission, but they do not give up. And then it's December. Am I missing anything important? No. Okay, then it's December 7th. Yeah, I am. What happens right before this is Hitler will turn on Stalin. He will go against the Nazi-Soviet non-aggression pact, and in Operation Barbarossa will invade the Soviet Union, and he starts kicking butt, and he makes it all the way to Moscow very quickly, and to Stalingrad even, by 41. So from 39 to 41, it's looking like Japan, Italy, Germany, the Axis powers are doing very well, right? They're doing very well. But 42 is the year of change. That's because in the winter of 41, a lot of important things happen. Okay, first of all, December 7th, 1941, the United States enters the war because Pearl Harbor is bombed by the Japanese. The United States had put sanctions on Japan, including oil, for their aggression in China. And Japan is an island country without a lot of reserves of anything. And so it needs oil. And so what it decides is it's going to make one swift move against not only the United States, but all European, all non-Asian powers in the Pacific. Asia for Asians, right? And the Greater East Asian Co-Prosperity Sphere. And so on December 7th and December 8th, not only do they attack Pearl Harbor, but also Guam, Midway, the Philippines, Hong Kong, the Dutch East Indies, Singapore, like every place ever, in a coordinated strike. And they're all successful, right? They're all successful. But famously, one of the Japanese generals, he was an admiral who was actually in charge of the D-Day invasion. He wasn't all for it, but he wanted to support it. He wanted to do the best he could. Isoroku Yamamoto. He said, "We have awoken a sleeping giant." He didn't want the U.S. coming into war because he knew that Japan's industrial and military capacity to wage a long, protracted war against the United States would not work. So 42 is the year of change. Key battles. So the United States gets in, and Great Britain's like, yeah, now we're finna fight. The United States had been helping Great Britain with money and supplies called the Lend-Lease program. But they weren't fighting directly, right? But that all changes in 42. Kind of like World War I, when the U.S. shows up, okay, now we're really fighting. And because Hitler now has a two-front war because he, for whatever reason, attacks the Soviet Union, it's like now it's like the gloves are off, right? I should say, during this time, Hitler will double down on his final solution for the Jewish question. The Holocaust. His plan is to eliminate European Jewry, and about 90% of European Jews are killed in the Holocaust. Some 6 million out of the 12 million killed in the Holocaust. Not just Jews, but Roma, homosexuals, Christians, Jehovah's Witnesses, Catholics, disabled, those with mental disabilities, everything, right? Political prisoners, prisoners of war, they're all sent to work camps and then die. Let's see here. 42. Key battles to know. Ding ding. First, the tide of war turns in the Pacific when the United States does get that military industrial capacity up. They start building ships, and they're able to counter the Japanese at the Battle of Midway. From then on, the Japanese will be on the run in the Pacific. The United States will carry out an island hopping campaign where they go from island to island, base to base, slowly making their way to the home islands, and they will take out Japan finally with the atomic bombs, right, in August of 45. Uniquely, the United States, even though it was only directly attacked by the Japanese, will only focus about 20% of military power on Japan. The Allies had a Hitler first policy. And the United States is not the only one fighting in the Pacific. They're also assisted by, colonial powers, Europeans who had a stake there. And the Chinese, of course, are really doing the brunt of all the fighting. Second, the Allies will land in North Africa at Casablanca and make their way across. The British will hold off an Italian and German attempt to take the Suez Canal at the Battle of El Alamein. And the Soviet Union will and this turns the tide in North Africa, and the Soviet Union will turn back the deepest and last push of the Germans at the Battle of Stalingrad. All of this takes place in 1942. So 1942 is the key year of turn point battles. And then from then on, Germany and Italy will be on the run again until 45, when in May, Berlin is surrounded. Soviets get there first. I should say Mussolini is ousted in 43, and then there's like an Italian civil war thing. Germany will come in and take it over, but then, they're all on the run. And then the big move there is as the Soviets push from the east, Operation D-Day, Overlord, it's called D-Day, June 6, 1944, the largest amphibious invasion ever. Allies will establish a beachhead in France and then move their way towards Berlin. Hitler will commit suicide, and then the Japanese will be the last to surrender after the atomic bombs. Okay, let's talk about each country in the war. Like I said, the United States with FDR. At first, FDR, of course, had been president for a long time. He wanted the Allies to win, but there was still that anti-war isolationist sentiment in the United States. And so instead, they gave them money and supplies in the Lend-Lease program. But after Pearl Harbor, the United States would get in, kick up that military machine, and be the biggest purveyor of arms, one of the biggest purveyors of people, ships, guns, goods, food, and really turn the tide of war, right? In Great Britain, under Winston Churchill, they were able to survive the Blitz, right? He gave a famous speech to Parliament where he says, "We shall never surrender." And so he would lead an effective resistance. The only European country really not to give up, to give in and hold out until the United States and the Soviet Union came to help, right? And so those people are sometimes called the Big Three: Stalin, Churchill, and Roosevelt, the big three allies, right? In the Soviet Union, Stalin would continue his command economy and mobilize all aspects of the war. I should say all of these countries, of course, are practicing conscription, the draft. Men are drafted to fight. If you can't fight, you're going to work or do backline duty. And women, you've got to do something too. You're going to be in the military as a nurse or mechanic. Some fought in the Soviet Union. If not, you're going to be working in a factory. And if you're going to be at home, you're going to be taking care of stuff at home, cooking, cleaning, gardening, mechanicking. I mean, it's a total war. So we all got to do something, right? And that was especially true in the Soviet Union. Hard command economy where they're dictating every aspect of production. And at first, it took him a while because Stalin's like, oh, wait, we're getting invaded. We had that non-aggression pact. He was kind of sitting on his hands. But then he kicked into gear and got it figured out. And after Stalingrad would turn the tide of war. I don't know if I need to say much about Hitler. In Germany, all of the stuff I had said before would apply to him with the command economy. Both countries, by the way, are using coerced labor. Gulag work. Gulags are the prison camps in the Soviet Union, but especially bad is the death camps like Auschwitz, Birkenau, Dachau, where slave labor from Jew to prisoner of war are used in the Nazi war machine. And the economy is commanded there too, just in a fascist way. What am I missing? All these states use propaganda, conscription, total war. Let me talk a little bit about the Holocaust. I don't think I need to talk a lot about it. The final solution was decided at the Wannsee Conference, 1942. Historians debate, did Hitler spend too much time on the Holocaust, whatever, or resources, whatever. What you need to know is 90% of the Jewish population in Europe died, 6 million, out of the 12 million others who were killed in that too. Really a terrible thing. At first, they were shot by Einsatzgruppen. But then eventually, after the Wannsee Conference, we have whole death factories where you work until you die, or if you can't work, you just die immediately by gassing. Terrible thing. Now, 7.8 is mass atrocities after 1900, of which the Holocaust is one. Of course, all of them by totalitarian big governments. But a couple came before that. The earliest one you need to know, it's mentioned in the CED, is the Armenian genocide in the Ottoman Empire. The Armenians are Caucasian Christians. The Ottomans are Turkish Muslims, and they wanted to kill them because they thought, correctly, that they supported Russia, right, in World War I against the Ottoman Empire. And so 1 million to 2 million of them are killed. Forced marches, shootings, starvings, pushed off cliffs, terrible thing. Next is the Holodomor, or the starving in the Ukraine, from Stalin's collectivization of agriculture and the elimination of the kulaks, the private landowning peasant class. It led to an artificial famine where, again, 2 to 3 million starved to death. The starving, called the Holodomor in the Ukraine in the 20s and the 30s. Tack on the Great Depression, yeah, it's pretty rough there. Next is the Holocaust, which we just went over. Okay, there's, your book mentions 3, there's 2 more mentioned by the CED, and there's many more, but these are the big ones. The next one would be the Cambodian genocide during the Khmer Rouge. There's a communist revolution there in the 70s, and a dictator named Pol Pot comes to power, and he wants to make a perfect communist state. So following, Mao Zedong and Joseph Stalin, he starts killing enemies of the state. City people with glasses, those who are educated, those who weren't communist enough. And I think in this one, again, all of these numbers are iffy because who's keeping count? And a lot of times they try to hide it, of course. But we're talking maybe even up to 500,000 dead in the 70s in Cambodia. Cambodian genocide, Pol Pot, Khmer Rouge, communist. Okay, next is Rwanda. Rwanda had been part of the Belgian Congo. And what happens here is in the 90s, there's 2 ethnic groups that make up the majority of that area in Africa. The Hutu and the Tutsi, of which the latter is about 20% minority. And a bloody ethnic, racial conflict between these two ensues, almost eliminating all of the Tutsi in that region. Again, the numbers are iffy, but we could be around 500,000 killed. Your book mentions, so that's Rwandan genocide, Hutu, Tutsi, the 90s. Your book also mentions the ethnic cleansings in the Balkan Peninsula in the 90s that make up the various Yugoslav wars, fightings between Christians, Muslims, and different. So you have a religious thing, you have an ethnic thing there, the Croats, the Serbs. Again, the figures are iffy, and it's a protracted thing in the 90s, but displaced and killed 250 to 750,000. So it's the 90s, ethnic cleansing and the Yugoslav wars. Yes. Okie dokie, ladies and gentlemen. So that's 7.7, conducting World War II, and 7.8, the various ethnic and racial genocide stuff. So, all right, make sure you have this done by Wednesday. Love y'all.